Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Irene Dankelman. I'm from the Netherlands. I've been studying there biology, finished my studies already 40 years ago, and I'm working as a lecturer at the Radboud University in Nijmegen and with Erdana Advice as a consultant. I'm happy to share my experience with you today. What inspired me to enter this area of environment or of STEM? When I was already very young, my teachers in the primary school asked me what I wanted to be, and I told them something with the environment. That inspiration came from my father, who brought us out in the forests, and we did long walks there, and he learned us the names of plants. Also at secondary school, we had two great teachers who taught us biology, and the way they were sharing their knowledge was really inspirational for me. Certainly, three publications come to my mind, which I read during the secondary school period. Silent Spring of Rachel Carson, Only One Earth of Barbara Ward and René de Booth, and Limits to Growth from Donella and Dennis Meadows. By the way, three of these authors were female. Also, I was a member of a youth environmental group at that time, and we went out in the forests, in the field, every weekend. So this was a really important foundation for my environmental work. Of course, after finishing my studies, starting my career, pioneering work in environment and development was quite a challenge. It was a new area in which not many people were working, not in the Netherlands and not worldwide. Later on, after I visited the UN Women's Conference in Nairobi in 1985, I started working on women, gender and sustainability. Again, that was a new area, so pioneering work, and again, lonely. Often I was one of the only or the only woman in groups of male colleagues in the NGOs, the academia, the government agencies and the UN where I was working. A lonely position. Many of my travels abroad were at my own, and even during my field work as a biology student, I had to go out in the field myself, and I didn't feel always safe and secure. During my whole career, and even now, I feel that sometimes I have to be better than my male colleagues. So the glass ceiling is all around us, even in my own institution and many of our colleague institutions. What has been my highlight? Of course, there's not one highlight. Many of the processes, the events, learning from hundreds of local women in the fields, in Asia or in Africa, sometimes in Latin America, made me realize that the position I had, learning from them, was essential, but also it helped me to realize that the social dimension of environmental work is essential. The gender issue in environment. And for over 33 years, focusing on that with others is the ground on my work. Why is it important to build a gender perspective in environment? We've long been thinking that environmental change is gender neutral. Nothing is less true. At local, but also at policy and at professional level, we see that building a social dimension, and specifically a gender dimension, in our work is crucial. This is also reflected in the latest publication of UN Environment on this issue, the Global Gender and Environment Outlook. And we will see it back in the Global Environment Outlook that will be published next year. Land, water, agrobiodiversity, the atmosphere, all reflect the diverse tasks, responsibilities and knowledge systems of male and females, at household level, but also at organizational and institutional levels. When it comes to environmental change, and certainly when I look at climate change, an area I've been working in over the past years, causes and impacts are gendered, but also our climate actions and management systems, is it mitigation or adaptation, show a gender element very clearly. And if we don't look at that, if we neglect the gender dimension, there is a tendency to increase existing social inequalities. And it's not only a question of vulnerabilities, of gendered capabilities and capacities as well. Agency of women, like those of men, is essential. We have made progress. There are many more girls and women now studying biology or environmental science and taking it as a professional area. But at higher level, there's still a discrepancy. So we have to build the words of gender equality into action. What does this mean for the girls and young women who are thinking of such a career? Follow your heart. That's the first and most important one. And get inspired by others, by role models, by teachers, by publications, or social media. Get out in nature or do field trips, experiment yourself, or build alliances and groups with other women and girls. There are plenty of organizations these days who are working in that interconnection. And be assured you're not alone. Most importantly, be proud and enjoy your work. The EU can enhance a gender perspective in its research in many different ways. Make gender analysis if you design your programs, your research programs. Make gender explicit in your call for proposals. I think this is essential. And research the social dimension of environmental change. Where possible, collect gender-specific data and revitalize your EU policy on research from a gender perspective. Last but not least, use the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, to check how your research and policies are relevant in all these different areas, including gender justice. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'd like to wish you much success and wisdom in your deliberations.